Hello friends, Chris from doWhileLoops here. In this video we're going to be talking about practice. Sure, you've heard that practice makes perfect. That's actually not the whole truth. It's actually how you practice that makes the biggest difference. Let's go over some tips and tricks to keep in mind as you go about your practice so you can get the most out of it and avoid wasting your time. Let's hit it. Alright, number one, memento mori. This is an old Latin saying that basically says, remember you must die. Now that's fairly dramatic for a video about music practice, but the sentiment is still the same. You only have so many hours in your life, and therefore, so many hours to practice music. This is especially true as you get older. You tend to pick up more responsibilities like a house, job, family, etc. It's therefore in your best interest to approach your practice very intentionally, even if you're just beginning. There are a couple of common pitfalls here. One is to sit down and practice without any plan at all. Now, it is great fun, and honestly it's necessary sometimes to sit down and just play, and that's something we'll talk about later in the video. But by and large, it's a great idea to have an overarching goal in your practice. Outlining where you want to be as a player is going to give you a great idea of the type of things that you should be practicing during your time, and also save you tons of effort and frustration along the way. Another common pitfall here is to continue to practice things that you can already play well. Sometimes this sort of behavior is called looping. It feels like you're doing something constructive, but really, you're just spinning your wheels. Again, sometimes you do need to play things that you can already bang out with ease. It's a good reminder that, oh yeah, I do know what I'm doing. But for the most part, the point of intentional practice is to push your boundaries as a player and work on things that are not easy for you. So, remember that your time is limited and structure your approach on your instrument from there. Okay, number two, multiple sessions. There are these myths around certain musicians, how they lock themselves in a room for hours and days on end, shunning society until they reach perfection on their instrument. Now those stories are definitely true in some cases, but quite honestly, that type of approach isn't very sustainable for the long term, let alone healthy in the first place. Honestly, it's hard for a lot of people to carve out even an hour of focused, uninterrupted time to practice their instrument, and even if they do, some type of distraction will creep in, like your phone, etc., and literally steal the time that you've created for practice. More realistically, you want to think about dividing your practice up into multiple sessions a day. Think about this. What's easier to pull off? An hour of uninterrupted practice time where your focus will inevitably start to dwindle away, or 3 focused 20-minute sessions where you know exactly what you want to accomplish in each one. You can also divide your goals up between the sessions, which leads us right into the next tip. Okay, the next tip, divide and conquer. One of the things that makes playing music so great is that it encompasses so many different areas. There are physical skills involved, mental skills, emotional, etc. When you're first starting out, you're probably going to be spending a lot of time on the physical end of things. Just being able to wrangle your instrument under control is a huge accomplishment. As you progress though, you always want to make sure you remember that you're here to play actual music, not technical exercises. It's all too easy to get wrapped up in just playing technical exercises and shun playing actual songs. This is something I was guilty of myself for a long time, and I still have to remind myself of. And this is why I'd recommend breaking your practice up into technical and musical departments, if you will. A good technique here is time boxing, which is basically setting a timer when working on a given skill, and when it goes off, you drop that and you move on to the next thing. For example, if you're working on scale exercises on your guitar, set a timer for 15 minutes. And during that 15 minutes, that's all you're doing is those scale exercises. After that goes off, you stop working on that and you move on to the next thing, which could be another exercise or applying what you just learned to an actual song, whatever it is. And how this ties into the last point of multiple sessions is that you can devote each mini session of practice to a specific thing, be that a technical exercise or an actual song that you're learning. This will also help you balance out your practice between becoming better technically and learning how to musically play actual music, which honestly is the more important skill in my opinion. You don't want to be the person who rips on their instrument, but when someone asks you to play a song, you got crickets. So, divide your practice and balance it out. Alright, number 4. Approach your practice like you would a workout. If you think about it, music and athletic endeavors aren't that far apart. Both involve developing and sharpening a specific set of physical and mental skills, and you should approach your practice sessions accordingly. Most importantly, this means that you should take breaks while you're doing your exercises. If you think about how you would approach a bench press, you lay down on the bench, you unrack the bar, you do a certain number of reps until you get tired, rack the bar, then get up, take a break for a few seconds to a few minutes, and then you hit it again. You repeat this for a certain number of sets, and then you move on to the next exercise. This is exactly how you should approach your musical practice. You play an exercise, you take a break, shake it out for a few seconds, and then play it again. You got to realize that your brain and your instrument muscles will get tired over time. It's inevitable. There's only so much juice you're going to be able to squeeze out of any given session. If you try to push your limits too far too fast, it's going to lead to frustration and burnout. Playing music is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, so don't even get into that mental space. Just approach it like a workout and take breaks as needed. Okay, next one. Track your progress. This one kind of ties into the last point, but tracking your progress is a great way to keep yourself motivated, as well as figuring out what works and what doesn't. You can use whatever method you want. You can use a text document, a spreadsheet, or a good old-fashioned pencil and paper, whatever works for you. You just need some way to keep track of things over time. You can also write notes about what you're practicing, how you're feeling about your overall playing, etc. It can actually turn into a kind of journal, which is definitely not a bad thing. And speaking of tracking your progress, I would highly suggest you look into getting one of these little guys, a metronome. If you don't know what these things are, a metronome is just a device that taps out a steady beat. This is extremely useful because when you're practicing by yourself, the tendency is to play the things you know well at tempo, but slow down on the parts that you can't play well. This is something that almost everyone does subconsciously, and unless you're using one of these, it can be hard to keep yourself honest and bring up your weak points. Now, these things can be bought cheaply off of Amazon, but they're also free apps for your phone. You can use a drum machine as well if you have access to one. The goal here is to just set a tempo, then play your passage or song at that strict tempo. And if that's a challenge, then just slow the tempo down until you can play it. Write that tempo down in your journal, then next session, see if you can increase that tempo by 5 beats per minute, then the next time, increase it by 5, etc. Using one of these things isn't mandatory, but it can definitely help you along. The main point is to track your progress so you just don't spin around in circles. Okay, the next tip is to slow things down. It can be extremely frustrating to watch a musician play something seemingly perfectly, but then when you go to do it, you can't. Either you can't get your fingers to work that fast, or everything goes well until you get to that dreaded one part, etc., etc. It's at this point where you have to remember one of the most powerful tools in your practicing tool belt, slowing it down. There's no point in playing something you can't play at its normal speed. You're just practicing the skill playing it incorrectly while simultaneously frustrating yourself into oblivion. It's much more effective to isolate the tough parts and slow them down to the point where you can actually play them with precision and then practice it at that tempo for a while. Over time, gradually increase the tempo and then plug that part back into the original song and play it as a whole. And this may involve slowing the entire song down. There's no shame in that at all. The principle remains the same. Slowing things down to a manageable tempo is a huge key in improving on your instrument. By the way, a metronome and some kind of practice log will come in very handy during this process as well, as we discussed earlier. Alright, coming close to the end here. This one is taking it off the page. What I mean by that is for music that you're trying to learn, you should try to play it without looking at the sheet music. And that's because reading music and playing music are two separate skill sets, and the more you try to do both at the same time, the more each one suffers. In certain instances, this is unavoidable, but for the most part, once you learn them, you should try to play things from memory if possible. And if you've never done this before, try this experiment. Take a thing that you can already play well, but you still look at the music every time. Play it first looking at the music, and then play it again, but close your eyes as you play. And see what happens to your awareness once you shut off the input that's coming in through your eyes. You're going to have way more energy to put towards the actual performance. You got to realize that sheet music only exists so the player can read the notes off the page, put them through their instrument, and out into the actual world. Once you eliminate the first part of that process, which is the reading part, you can concentrate on the playing, have a much better time overall. This is going to yield dividends as you improve, especially if you play in a group setting or get involved in jazz or some other kind of improv stuff. Alright, so this last one's pretty simple, but it definitely needs to be said. Have fun. Don't forget why you started playing music in the first place. Odds are, listening to music made you feel good, and you wanted to be a part of that by learning how to play it. It's way too easy to get bogged down in trying to improve that you forget there's supposed to be a fun factor here. It's a good idea to carve out some time in your practice to just play, and that can mean all kinds of things. You can improvise over a song that you know, you can write your own songs, or you can play a song that you know well and just enjoy the act of playing. The point is just take some time out to just enjoy playing and, have fun. Well, that's it, friends. Some tips and tricks on practice. Take the ones that work for you and let me know how it goes in the comments. I appreciate you watching today's video. And like, share, and subscribe if you got something out of it. Till next time, I'm Chris from doWhileLoops. Take her easy and enjoy making music.